Installation of the Nopon OKI aerator. The installation of the Nopon OKI is quick and effortless when you have planned the installation carefully beforehand and have all the needed tools, accessories, and the installation plans are on hand at the installation site. In this video, we show you how to plan the installation, how to unpack the shipping crate, how to bind hoses and cables, how to install the aerator in the basin, how to connect hoses and electric cables, how to check the rotor is rotating correctly, and how to ensure that no excess material is in the basin. The careful completion of installation requires that both the compressor's air blowers and electricity are installed and ready to use. How to plan installation of the Nopon OKI. Make sure that you have the latest accepted aerator installation plan. Make sure that the aeration basin corresponds to the plans and its bottom even within the given tolerance. Ensure that you have a crane which has enough lifting capacity, has sufficient reach, and there is enough installation personnel, including a certified electrician. Make sure you have all needed tools and accessories at hand. Caution: if you have a separate protection air system, make sure that the air pressure fed into the aerator does not exceed the pressure outside the aerator by over 0.5 of a bar. Also, it is good to note that a good general amount for protection air is about 5 to 20 liters per minute. How to unpack the shipping crate. The OKI aerator is shipped with all needed parts to the installation site. Unpacking the shipping crate and the binding of electric cables and hoses can be done either by the side of the basin being installed or at the bottom of the empty basin. If installation is made at the bottom of the basin, the aerator can be lifted directly from the transport truck to the basin. In this situation, make sure that the process air channel on top of the stator lid is direction to the corresponding process air supply by the basin. Detach the manuals from the aerator hood and follow the installation instructions thoroughly. Check the nameplates, either from stator or power cable, to make sure that the voltage and frequency values of the aerator correspond to the plant's value. Detach the process air hose from around the aerator and straighten it next to the aerator. Straighten the lifting cable next to the process air hose. Detach the hose flanges from the aerator and place them next to the process air hose. Unroll the power cables and protection air hose from around the aerator hood and straighten them away from the aerator. Accessories, hose clamps, rubber straps and flange seal are found in their own package, either inside one of the stator channels or on the stator lid. The binding of hoses and power cables. Put hose flanges next to the ends of the process air hose and mark the places of grooves from the hose spindles to the hose with, for example, a marker pen or adhesive tape. Clean the hose from any impurities inside with a dry rag for the length of the hose spindles. Put the clamps around the hose, 2 to the rubber-covered end and 3 around the other end. Note: the rubber-covered end always connects with the aerator. Insert the hose spindles to the hose and please note that the flange with the bend is connected to the aerator. Then tighten the clamps to the marked places around the hose. Make sure that neighboring clamps are rotated a quarter of a turn from each other. The third clamp at the uncovered head is tightened just at the end of the hose. Use an anti-seizing grease on the screw threads. Retighten the clamps after 30 minutes. Connect the process air hose flange to the aerator's process air opening so that the flange directs the hose away from the aerator. Attach the rubber straps around the process air hose, one for each half meter, facing in the same direction so that the holes for cables are at the side of the hose. You can utilize the colored stripe in the hose as a guide. Connect the electric cables and the protection air hose to the straps and attach the free end of the strap. Make sure that the cables and the protection air hose don't touch the stator's surface or process air hose's tightening clamps, and that they are not too tight or loose considering the final position of the process air hose and the hose's drift. Installing the Nopon OKI into the basin. First, we'll show you how to install into an empty basin, and then we show how to install into a filled basin. Insert the loose ends of the electric cables and the protection air hose into the process air hose. Attach the lifting cloth around the process air hose according to the installation manual. A suitable attaching place is about 1 meter from the hose's end. Connect the lifting cable of the OKI unit and the free end of the lifting cloth to the crane's hook. Start lifting the aerator slowly. Check that the aerator's weight is fully on the lifting cable and that no weight is on the process air hose. Follow the lift carefully all the time and give instructions to the crane's operator with either hand signals or a walkie-talkie. Lower the OKI unit to its primary location on the basin bottom. Guide the aerator at the end part of the lift so that the process air channel on the top of the stator lid is directed to the corresponding process air supply next to the basin. Transfer with the crane the loose end of the process air hose near the process air connection. If the lifting cable is too short, you must disconnect it from the crane before continuing. Attach the lifting cable to its place at the rim of the basin, at least 4 meters away from the process air connection. Check that the lifting cable and the hose do not rub against each other, remembering that during use when basins are almost full, the process air hose comes almost vertically from the aerator to the surface. Remove the ends of the protection air hose and the electric cables from inside the process air hose and put them next to their corresponding installation locations. Connect the process air hose to its process air supply connector using the crane to assist in moving. Make sure that the seal for the flange connection is in its place. Connect the protection air hose to the protection air supply. Connect the electric cables to the connection box. Please note that for this step you need a certified electrician for high voltage work. If the aerator was lifted into the basin in its shipping crate, you must use the instructions above adapted into the situation. Test run in an empty basin. Rotate the rotor by hand to make sure that it rotates freely and there is nothing between the rotor and stator. Go next to the aerator and give instructions for starting it. Make sure that the rotor rotates in the correct direction, which is clockwise when seen from the top. Stop the aerator. Filling the basin with water. Before filling, check for the presence of any excess material in the basin. Also, open the protection air valves and enough process air valves to allow starting the compressor blower. If you have separate protection air network, just open the protection air valves. Check that protection air flows through the aerator. This can be checked by listening for the sound of airflow next to the aerator. Start filling the basin. Watch during the filling of the basin that protection air really flows into the aerator. This can be seen as little air bubbles at the surface in the aerator's location. Installing the Nopon OKI into a filled basin. Connect the extension hose used during the installation between protection air hose and protection air supply and open the protection air valve. Before lifting the aerator outside the basin, rotate the rotor by hand to make sure that it rotates freely and there is nothing between the rotor and the stator. Start the lifting of the aerator slowly. Check the aerator's weight is fully on the lifting cable and that no weight is on the process air hose. Follow the lift carefully all the time and give instructions to the crane's operator with either hand signals or a walkie-talkie. Lower the OKI unit to approximately its final place on the water surface. Check once more that the protection air valve is opened and protection air flows to the aerator. Lower the aerator carefully on the basin bottom between the final installation place and the basin's rim. Transfer with the crane the loose end of the process air hose near to the process air connection. Remove the ends of the electric cables from inside the process air hose next to their corresponding installation locations. Connect the process air hose to its process air supply connector using the crane to help in moving. Ensure that the seal for flange connection is in its place. Remove the protection air hose extension and connect the protection air hose to the protection air supply. Connect the electric cables to the connection box. Please note that for this step you need a certified electrician for high voltage work. Lift the aerator back on the surface so that you can see the rotor. Start the aerator for a moment and check that the rotor rotates clockwise. If not, then the electrician has to change the connection and a new rotation check must follow. Shut down the aerator. Check once more that the protection air valve is opened and protection air flows to the aerator. Lower the aerator carefully to the bottom of the basin so that the process air hose keeps the aerator in the right direction, ensuring that the process air channel on the top of the stator lid is directed to the corresponding process air supply next to the basin. Follow the lift carefully all the time, making sure that the process air supply does not get too tight and that the aerator does not knock the basin walls. Give instructions to the crane's operator with either hand signals or a walkie-talkie. Attach the lifting cable to its place at the rim of the basin, at least 4 meters away from the process air connection. Check that the lifting cable and process air hose do not rub against each other. Starting up the aerator. Open the process air valve and ensure that process air flows into the aerator. Now you can start the aerator. Watch the surface and adjust the process air valve so that in the top of the basin a beautiful aerating pattern is formed. By following this advice, you will ensure correct and safe installation and faultless long-time use.